Hello, everyone. So, full disclosure, I work at a unit that reports directly to Provost Macaulay. Yeah, we're good. And I'm being recorded, but I will just clarify I am speaking on behalf of myself as an individual. Even though I am a very proud member of the University of Michigan community, I've worked here almost 24 years in a variety of roles. So, thank you. Anyway, so yes, I'll be speaking as a longtime member of the University of Michigan community. I'll be speaking as a former instructor of English. And yes, AI is a big deal to me as a teacher, former instructor of writing. And I'll be speaking as a Christian. So that's what I'm bringing to this conversation. So as I think about the pursuit of truth at a public university, I want to start with an interaction between Jesus and the Roman governor Pilate. And it's historical, but as you listen, it rings contemporary. All right, so this comes from the book of John, chapter 18. This is Jesus being brought in front of Pilate. "You're a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. With this, he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him." So Pilate asked this question, what is truth? You can just hear the cynicism, you can hear the doubt that there's any standard of truth, that there's no way to get there. His words are ironic, of course, given that he is speaking, he's interacting with Jesus, whom the Bible describes as the embodiment of truth. And so today we're asking similar questions in our society. Can truth even be found? Can it be found through a public university? And so, spoiler alert, my answer will be a resounding yes. And I hope yours is as well. What I'm going to contend is that it is absolutely possible for public universities to foster the pursuit of truth, even now. And I'll further propose that Christians within public universities bear a particular responsibility for modeling the pursuit of truth in a principled and winsome way. The public university is not something that happens to you, where you have no voice or motivations. You are a part of the public university. If you are studying, learning, teaching, working here, you are the public university. You're a vital part of this community and you have volition. And ultimately, God is bigger than any public university or doctoral committee or professor. So here's what I want to talk about. You'll hear some similar themes, I'm honored to say, with our provost and perhaps Dan as well. But I'm going to start by laying out some foundational concepts, and then I want to move to a discussion of what I consider to be inhibitors and enablers of truth pursuits at public universities. I'll share some examples of truth-seeking that I have experienced or undertaken at U of M in the context of my work. And then I'm going to leave you with 3 small steps I propose that each of us can take to promote the pursuit of public truth, or the pursuit of truth at a public university. So let me quickly move through some of my core assumptions, and I'm trying to model, incidentally, what we do when we examine different sources of information. We acknowledge, we look for the core assumptions that are underlying an argument. So I am pulling that to the forefront here. First of all, what do I mean by truth when I'm talking about it? In my comments here today, I'm going to be talking about truth from a Christian perspective as a coherent reality that finds its source in God. It is things as God knows them to be. I'm coming from the position that all knowledge belongs to God. As we read in the book of Colossians, He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. So this includes the universe, within it, public higher education, within it, public universities, U of M, and yes, even your particular field of study. All of it depends on Christ's power for its continued existence. So we read in the Word of God that the Word itself is truth, that God's work is done in truth, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, the embodiment of truth. We read that the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, when the Holy Spirit comes, He guides us into truth. Christians are called to seek truth. It brings wisdom and freedom, we are told. It is arduous work. It is rigorous. You think about some of the verses in the Bible about asking, seeking, knocking. We're told in Ephesians, find out what pleases the Lord. And the Berean Christians are praised for examining the scriptures every day to see if what Paul said was true. You might think of them as the fact checkers of their times. So another core principle assumption that I'm operating with is the saying that all truth is God's truth. And this comes from St. Augustine, but is also discussed and carried further by Aquinas and Calvin. What do I mean by all truth is God's truth? We can expect to find God in all kinds of knowledge, not only theology and religion. We can find the divine in the structure of a cell, the patterns of humans' language acquisition, anthropological study, the intricacy of mathematical formulas. I'm married to a statistician. He says this is true. The workings of computer code, effective business management strategies. Now here comes my field. Literature that points us to the depths and varieties of human experiences and sparks love and empathy for our neighbors. So none of these truths are a surprise to the Lord, even the hard truths. We should receive these various forms of truth as gifts from God. Another thing to note, all truth is God's truth. We get it wrong sometimes. Humans interpret things wrongly sometimes. We have our limits. We have our biases. Well, I want to throw out a quick example. For me as a scholar of literature, I was a British Victorianist. Dickens, any Dickens fans in the house? Jane Austen, good. I hate Beowulf. Oh no. Anyway, just so you know, literature professors don't necessarily love all literature. I hope that can bring you some freedom. But as a scholar of literature, I have always been really encouraged by the book of Daniel. So for those of you who are familiar with this story, the Israelites have been exiled to Babylon. They've been taken over by an oppressor. Daniel and a couple of his royal companions have been forced into something of a cultural assimilation project in King Nebuchadnezzar's court. And they've been chosen not only because they come from a royal family, but they're described as having an aptitude for learning. The chief of the court officials has a job, and that is to teach them, quote, the language and literature of the Babylonians for 3 years' time. It's like a doctoral program, really. So they're pressured to give up their Jewish identities. And one thing Daniel does in response is to negotiate a dietary experiment. Remember, he doesn't want to eat the rich food from the king's table. He says, let me eat vegetables and water, let me do this God's way and see if I'm going to be a healthier person. Notably, he doesn't negotiate anything about the literary study. That's all good, right? The Lord doesn't seem terribly worried about that. And in fact, we read in the book of Daniel, to these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. And in fact, on every matter of understanding, they're 10 times better than the other learned people in the court. So, God doesn't seem overly worried about their learning the language and literature of even their oppressor. They are able to find truth even in those terribly difficult circumstances. It doesn't defile them. In fact, he makes them successful. So truth can be found and pursued in unexpected places, like my English Ph.D. program, where there tend not to actually be many Christians. Another founding belief I'll call attention to is the doctrine of common grace. And I'm going to simplify this for those of you who are theologians, forgive me, but basically the idea that God is so merciful that he allows his character and his goodness to manifest itself in all parts of creation, whether or not that part of creation chooses to honor him or not. He manifests his goodness in a fallen world. So we can expect to see, because of God's kindness, the flourishing. We can expect to see good things like the flourishing of society, science, and art. And the public university is one of those places we see that goodness springing up. All right, so now I'm going to take a slightly darker turn, and I will be provocative here. I am being recorded, but I am not the provost, so I can say things like this. You may or may not agree with me, but I'm going to list some things that I consider to be inhibitors to the public university's fostering of truth pursuits at this moment in time. I will note, I think many of these inhibitors would hold up for a private university as well. It's not necessarily distinctive to a public university. And I would even say some of them were present in the time of Jesus, perhaps not with the same technologies, but other forms. So let me name some of these external forces or cultural forces. Misinformation, artificial intelligence, got to get my glasses on, barriers for international students and faculty members, cancel culture, echo chambers, political incivility and polarization, releasing sensitive data about one's opponents, like doxing, rescinded or suspended federal funding, relativism, acts of political violence, Americans' distrust of social institutions, and more. It's a lot of stuff that makes it hard for a public university to foster the pursuit of truth. But I'm with Provost Macaulay. It's not just the external forces, it's what's internal as well. Intellectual slothfulness. That's what we bring to the table. Among Christian groups, you know, maybe you remember reading this bumper sticker that says something like, God said it, I believe it, that settles it. Is that really what God is calling us into? Yes, respect and obedience to his commands, but an inquiry, a curiosity, a desire to know more, to explore, to understand the why, the entirety of a text, rather than just select verses. In the same way, the claim, I hear this too, and it disturbs me, especially from Christians, well, we can't know anything now. There's no way to discern any truth. It's just a crapshoot now. Everybody has their own truth. I can't do this. I know it takes a lot of energy. And I understand on some days, given what the topic is, you may not have it in you. I might not have it in me. But when we can, there are means of sorting through the strange and conflicting messages that we can receive right now. I'll remind some of us in the room whose lives we hope are formed by the Bible, of a verse from 1 Thessalonians. Test all things. Hold fast to what is good. Abstain from every form of evil. Notably, it doesn't say, absorb truth, let it roll over you. No, test all things. It's active. It's a dynamic process. Finally, our own limitations, our own wrongdoings can constrain us from pursuing truth. Things like pride. I need to be right. Things like greed. I need to get more of what I want, of what's good for me. Selfishness. I need to make sure that nothing's taken away from me and my family. As long as we're good, everything else can fall, the chips can fall as they may. And finally, I think we see fear really inhibiting our society's pursuit of truth, which ultimately gets to, in my view, a distrust in God's provision and care. The idea that if I can't aggressively defend my belief system, if I can't fight to get what I need, I'm on my own. I'm going to be weak and stupid. I'm going to lose this friendship. If you're like me, when you get into a disagreement about a truth claim, my heart pounds. My heart starts pounding. I have a little bit of a visceral bodily response. It's worth interrogating. Why is that? What's behind that? What is the fear? But now, on a brighter side, let's talk about enablers of truth pursuits in public universities. How can a public university foster truth? Well, a huge part of a student's curriculum here is not just the classes that you attend, but the countless lectures and forums that are available, public discussions. I know I've especially appreciated the university's investment in the Difficult Dialogues Initiative, intergroup relations, that truly U of M is one of the long-standing national leaders in terms of helping people dialogue across differences. I mean, I'm down the hallway from some of these people. They're famous folks. There's lots of understanding there. More recently, there's a Talking Maize and Blue initiative. There's the Year of Democracy. We've got all these things right here. We also are given disciplinary tools for evaluating truth claims or hypotheses. So I'm going to go to English, my field. For many, many years, I taught argumentative writing and rhetoric. There, we learn strategies for evaluating the credibility of a source. If that's not needed right now, I don't know what is. For identifying core assumptions, noticing logical fallacies, evaluating evidence in support of a claim, thinking about what a text is saying, but also what it's doing, being able to analyze the function of words. We learn to read widely, to consider opposing views. I'm sure many of you in this room are aware of a tool, attest, the interactive media bias chart. That it's a media literacy tool that plots out, it's politically independent, arguably, I guess, you know, who you are, politically independent content analysis of varying news sources and which ones skew left or right. So a best practice in my field of study is to consciously read across a spectrum and to read first as a believer and then read as a doubter. First read to just listen, let it wash over you, and then read to take it apart and analyze it. Reading literature from authors of varying backgrounds. You can think about your own disciplines, whether you are in college now or you were recently or you've got kids in college. Think about the tools of their disciplines. They are good gifts from God. We need to use them thoughtfully, acknowledging their biases. Now, one thing I'll note, one of my roles here at U of M for about 8 years, I was the managing director of a research innovation program called M-Cubed. And here we catalyze the formation of trios of faculty members around some kind of interdisciplinary project. And I would say this is one of the most magical things that a public university like U of M can do. Because there are many universities out there who are maybe have excellence in a few disciplinary areas, but right here in Ann Arbor, we have an institution that has excellence across the board in almost every kind of field. I won't go into all the rankings and evidence of that. But when we engage in interdisciplinary work, we have that natural check on the assumptions, on the biases of our field. How do we define success? What methodologies do we use? What are the assumptions, again, that we're making? It's laborious. It's effortful. It takes a little longer. But these are how some of the best results come forth. And then finally, I'll note, as others have, we have a mission here that is about loving our neighbor. Our public university gives us that gift. It's not just knowledge for knowledge's sake. It's to serve the people of Michigan and the world. So really quickly, I want to share a few snapshots of truth pursuits at U of M. How have I seen this on the ground in recent years? This is one of my favorite examples. I was staffing an executive committee for several years that involved many associate deans and senior faculty members. And I worked with, my boss was a former chair, so he knew how to build committees. This was not his first rodeo. And he said, what I want to do is construct a committee of people like this. People who can argue passionately about a view that they hold, but then listen to others and actually revise their position, who could actually change their minds. That's the kind of people I want on this committee. And I said to him, well, I think what you want is intellectual humility. I think you want humility, right? And he was culturally Catholic, and he said, yeah, that is what I want. And guess what? That's how we formed our committees. We had people rotate in and out a little bit over those 8 years. People said things like, this is my favorite committee to come to. I love these meetings. How often does that happen, Provost Macaulay? Not very often, right? Another example of truth pursuits at U of M that I have been honored to be a part of, for many years I worked in the Dean's office in Michigan Engineering, where former Dean Alec Gallimore and others launched people-centered engineering. All right, so it's not enough just to figure out what technologies or what design principles we need to call to mind to solve social problems. What they recognized was you need to think about the impact on communities. You need to think about who's at the table informing these solutions. That was another shining example. And then a third one I'll say is my work now at Advance, which is a faculty development, faculty excellence office. We focus on recruitment, retention, workplace climate, and leadership development. I've worked there 1 year, so how was that? Hopefully that was good. I work a lot with our research and evaluation team, and one of the things they do is conduct investigations of workplace climate in different departments. And chairs request this, deans request this, it's part of their 5-year reviews. And they go in and with a very carefully designed survey, and sometimes it's interviews as well, but they're asking questions like what level of belonging are various groups of faculty or staff members experiencing? Who isn't being asked to consider leadership roles and more? Who has felt that they were in danger in the last year? And at the end of the day, if you could watch these people at work and the rigor that they bring to this analysis, their efforts to make sure they're protecting the confidentiality of respondents, to ensure that they are accurately interpreting data and looking at statistical significance, it is very inspiring. So I get to see that pursuit of truth all the time. All right, closing out, 3 small steps. How I argue that Christians can promote truth pursuits at U of M. Number 1, bring intellectual humility to your studies and interactions. Don't posture. This is a big one. This is so tempting for me. Freely admit, I don't know, or I don't understand. You know those moments when somebody looks around the room and says, I assume everyone's aware of this economic principle, right? To actually be the one to say, no, actually I don't. Could you explain it to me? It feels very countercultural. As Christians, I would urge us, as part of that intellectual humility, not to assume that we know where falsehood lives. I would contend that Christians can get preoccupied sometimes around certain areas of truth claims to our own detriment and ignore some falsehoods that may be springing up in more subtle ways. Number 2, listen to understand rather than to defend. Who do I think of that is quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry? Who do I think of that's humble and gentle, that speaks truthfully but with kindness and compassion? Who do I think of that makes the most of each opportunity to interact with those outside the church, letting their conversations be full of grace? Who do I think of? 2 people. While you're driving or making dinner, I encourage you to listen to 2 podcasts. Number 1, Russell Moore, the head of Christianity Today. Listen for his tone of voice. Listen for how he asks questions. One of his most frequent responses when he interviews Christian and non-Christian cultural leaders alike is simply this. That's all. Just listening to learn. The second one I'll recommend is, it turns out, a friend of Rick Ostrander's, and so I'm very starstruck that he's your friend. But this is Lee Camp, professor of theology, who has a podcast called No Small Endeavor. Gracious, wise engagement with people who hold differing views. Finally, as the book of Jeremiah instructs God's people when they are exiles in Babylon, seek the good of your city. And I would urge us to do that here at the university. You are not captives here. You have not been forced to be here like Israelites were in Babylon. You may feel like an alien or stranger, and you should, because your views are different. The Bible says you will feel that way. But seek the well-being and prosperity of our university. Take advantage of sponsored activities to learn how to engage in dialogue. Do everything without complaining. And pray for our university leaders. It is a complex time to be a leader. Thanks.
Well, hi everyone. It's great to be back, and thanks to Rick for having me back here at the Michigan Christian Studies Center. I'm delighted to be here. For a minute, I was considering starting by quarreling with Valerie over Beowulf. Then I realized that she did something very smart that I failed to do, which is to bring her reading glasses to read her notes.
Oh.
And no, sorry. At my age, I'm not sure I'll actually be able to say anything coherent now because, the reading thing has to come first. But I want to suggest that there are two key principles with respect to the truth that are necessary to a university fulfilling its mission. And these may seem like they are contradictory ideas, but I think they're both vital to the university doing its job. The first is that the highest goal of a university is to facilitate and encourage the pursuit of the truth. And the second is that the university itself should not attempt to become the arbiter of the truth. Rather, the university should encourage and allow its individual members, its faculty, its students, its staff, its outside speakers, other members of the community to draw their own conclusions about the truth. So to get at these principles, I'd like to start with sharing a story or a fact I recently learned. Actually, it was in something that was already mentioned, the Talking Maize and Blue Committee that Rick and I are both part of the university. And this committee is developing has developed some programming for Michigan undergraduate students on thinking about the importance of diversity of viewpoints as part of what you encounter and should embrace here at University of Michigan. And some folks were doing some surveys of Michigan undergraduates on some topics, what their opinions were about things, ranging from frivolous things to very important things. And one of the questions they asked them was, do you believe that the lunar landing was faked? Any guesses? If you know, it's cheating. Any guesses as to the percentage of our smart Michigan undergraduates who believe that the lunar landings were faked? 23%. Okay, this alarmed me, all right? This alarmed me, but whatever your view is on that question, let me just say that the truth matters. I mean, the truth really matters. If, in fact, Neil Armstrong did not step off of Apollo 11 onto the Sea of Tranquility on the moon, but instead stepped out of a prop into a Hollywood studio. This is the greatest hoax in human history. And it matters. It matters not just to science, not just to our ongoing space program. It matters into how we should view the government. If they're lying about that, if they can pull that off, what else are they pulling off on us? It matters to our trust in the media. It matters to our epistemology, how we process the nature of truth. I mean, if that's a hoax, then I'm thinking all wrong about how I experience the truth. And by the way, if the lunar landing did happen, the fact that so many people think it didn't is also really consequential. It suggests a widespread gullibility, a willingness to indulge conspiracy theories that are absolutely unsupported by any scientific evidence. And if you don't believe in the lunar landing, what else are you not going to believe in, right? It's highly consequential what the truth actually is. The truth matters, of course, not just to that, but to everything else as well. What was the origin of COVID? Now, I'm not sure I know the answer to that. It's not because it doesn't matter. It's highly consequential. How effective were the vaccines, and what were their side effects? What's the truth about global warming? What's the truth about the Holocaust? Did Hamas commit mass rape on October 7th? Is Israel intentionally targeting civilians in Gaza? What are the effects of medical treatments for children with gender dysphoria? What's going on in ongoing confrontations between the police and young black men? All of these questions and many more are deeply consequential. The truth matters. As we've already heard tonight, people sometimes despair that it's so complicated that maybe we should just give up on talking about the truth. And you hear this a lot, like, you can have your truth and I can have my truth. Well, frankly, that is just bunk. I can have my experiences and you can have your experiences. I can have my beliefs and you can have your beliefs. But we can't have our own private truths. That's not what truth means. Truth is that which objectively is. There's no such thing as private truth. And actually, I don't think that most people who claim not to believe in truth actually don't believe in truth. Because if they did, they wouldn't spend all their time fighting about the very questions and many others. Let me say something very raw. Charlie Kirk wasn't assassinated because the truth or falsity of the things he said didn't matter. It's just the opposite. And the same is true of everything else. We contest over all these questions. We spend so much time fighting about them because we all recognize that the truth deeply matters. So the pursuit of truth is vital, and the university is the one place where people from across society, from all walks of life, from different backgrounds and belief systems, gather in the common pursuit of the truth. So the pursuit of the truth is the one most important job of the university. Now, a caveat here, and I'm just going to parrot, I think, some of the things that Valerie said, but we need to distinguish between believing in the truth and believing in the importance of diligently pursuing it and acting like we have it all. Now, University of Michigan is the greatest public research university in the world. I'm getting not humble here, but look, by all these measures, it really is. We are so privileged to be in this absolutely amazing place. Any discipline, there's a great research faculty community in. But it's so easy to get from that into the arrogance that somehow we have special claims on the truth. As a Christian, it's my belief that humility about the limitations of our knowledge is paramount. And that's despite the claim, as Valerie said, that truth is there and it should be pursued. In 1 Corinthians 13, the Apostle Paul is talking about three great virtues: faith, hope, and love. But he distinguishes between two of them and one of them. Faith and hope are temporal virtues. They're temporal because they have an expiration date, whereas love is an eternal virtue. The reason that faith and hope are temporal is because in the here and now, and here I'll quote the King James Version, the only true version, the only truth, that we, quote, see through a glass darkly. We see through a glass darkly. We see the truth through the lens of fallibility. We have limited knowledge, limited capacity to understand, and are subject to so many biases and false heuristics that we are constantly seeing the truth through a glass darkly. Here I'll date myself a little bit and quote a line from a 1989 song by Don Henley called The Heart of the Matter. And Don Henley repeats, "The more I know, the less I understand." I think that's really apropos of my own experience, as I've been an academic for over 20 years. And I'm learning a lot more, getting new knowledge all the time. In the middle of writing a big, thick history of antitrust law from Hammurabi to Lena Khan, right? It's full of facts, full of stuff I know, and I'm not sure I'm actually understanding it any better, right? I know a lot more, but the more I know, sometimes it seems like the less I understand. We have to have deep, deep humility when we say there is truth and we pursue it, to not think that means somehow that we lay all the claim to the truth. So that's my first point. The truth is vital to the mission of the university. The pursuit of the truth is the most important thing we can do. But my second point is that the university itself should not attempt to become the arbiter of what the truth is. And this observation comes out of, frankly, lots of battles I've had here over the last 10 or 15 years over questions about, I'll call it, institutional neutrality. And this is played out at the university level. It's played out at my department level, the law school, and other departments of the university as well. And the question is whether the university itself, through its administrators, should be taking positions on what the truth is in disputed questions of public importance. And I will put aside our wonderful current administration and speak about in the past and experiences I've had, where in many situations, leaders at the unit level or the university level would simply weigh in on contested political or social questions and say, like, here is the view of the University of Michigan on this question. I think fortunately in the last couple of years, the tide has turned. I served on the committee that drafted the policy on institutional neutrality that was adopted by our regents, and I was very involved in drafting lots of the language of that provision. But the idea is that the university leaders or departmental leaders should not take positions on contested questions on behalf of the university, right? They should not state truth claims on contested questions speaking as the university itself. So, for example, the dean of the law school should not weigh into the rightness or wrongness, the merits of the conflict in Gaza. That would be an inappropriate thing to do. Now, the reason for institutional neutrality is not because the truth is unimportant or the truth is not knowable. It's just the opposite. The truth is too precious, too important to be reduced to the diktat or sound bites of whoever happens to be in leadership. When the university or its departments takes an official position on contested questions, that tends to chill rigorous inquiry into those questions by the people who should be making the decisions, faculty, students, staff, and others. It reduces the incentives, opportunities, and motivation of the individuals in the university community to debate and inquire about those questions for themselves. Speech is freest, inquiry is most open and unbiased when the university confines its own role to setting the ground rules for engagement and supporting research and education rather than setting itself up as the arbiter of truth. Now, there are some important qualifications to what I just said, which are actually reflected in our policy, which this is very important to me. First of all, university administrators must and should take positions, even on contested matters, when they relate to our internal governance. Good case in point is DEI. Either we're going to do it or we're not going to do it. And once we make whatever the decision it is, the university administrators have to be able to explain why we decided on this particular internal governance decision, right? Now, note, that's different than the university making sweeping statements about DEI that don't relate to our internal governance. That's just an example. It's actually in our policy. Secondly, university administrators, and again, I include here whether it's the department head or the unit head or whoever it is, do not lose their right to speak in an individual capacity just because they're serving in the administration. So Valerie modeled this for us by saying, I'm speaking in an individual capacity. I should say right now I'm speaking on behalf of the University of Michigan. No, I'm not. I'm not speaking on behalf of the University of Michigan. This is a joke. So sometimes when I go to these conferences with government lawyers, they always have to start by saying, I want to be clear, I'm not speaking on behalf of the United States government or the Federal Trade Commission, I'm speaking on my individual behalf. And I always get up and say, and I am speaking on behalf of the University of Michigan. And they laugh. They get it. It's a joke, because of course I'm not. I don't have the power to do that. I wouldn't try. So people can speak in their individual capacity. The problem arises when they start taking positions about the truth and attributing it to the institution itself. That's what chills free and open inquiry. So I'd like to conclude by bringing together the 2 points I've made by offering some observations, mostly from my personal experience about teaching in the classroom and the role of truth seeking in the classroom. So if my students were here, my former students, they might accuse me of hypocrisy for claiming that the university exists to pursue the truth, because they say, well then Crane, why do you so assiduously steer away from indoctrinating students to your personal point of view in the classroom? You're squirrely, like we try to pin you down and you're constantly moving and telling us to think about the other side of things. Now, unfortunately, I do think that there are professors, hopefully not too many at the University of Michigan, who think that the classroom podium is their personal bully pulpit to impart their own ideology and beliefs. I think that's a gross abuse of a professor's position. We're here to teach, not to preach. That said, especially in the law school, when we're training students to advocate on either side of a position, it can seem like we're indifferent to the truth. We're just turning out hired guns. Now, I hope that's not what we're doing. To the contrary, I hope that by refusing to reduce the truth to our personal say-so, and instead training our students in critical thinking, analysis, research, writing, and persuasion, we're actually advancing the pursuit of the truth far more effectively than if we tried to give it directively. Our justice system is adversarial. It's based on the contest of opposing contentions about the truth in the courtroom. It's certainly imperfect and can result in gross errors and injustices, but by training our students to be better lawyers, to ask more penetrating questions, to dig more deeply into the record, to make more convincing arguments, we support the ultimate pursuit of truth and justice, which is the purpose of our legal system. So yes, without being directive about the truth, we can actually pursue the truth even more strongly. So to conclude, yes, the university's paramount duty is to enable the pursuit of truth. It does so the best when the university itself does not set itself up as the arbiter of truth, but instead provides a platform for research and learning by the individuals in the community. Thank you.